Hi everyone, my name is Michael and welcome to my channel. I'm exploring all the different ways that stationery can bring me joy. I thought today would be a really great time to take a moment to think about the upcoming Hobonichi launch for 2026. I recently watched Helena's video from the Tiny Tiger Co. about her relationship with Hobonichi and her feelings about the release, and it inspired me to kind of have a conversation digitally with her and the other people in the community who are talking about the 2026 Hobonichi launch as well. As someone who's relatively new to the hardcore stationery world online, I thought I would put my voice into the conversation, especially since this would be the first year, or this will be, excuse me, the first year that I kind of partake in the launch of the Hobonichi line for the next year. If you've been around on this channel for a bit, you know that I joined like YouTube and doing a deep dive into the stationery community around early December of 2024, and kind of the impetus was I saw a TikTok where Helen from the Coffee Monster Co. was writing in her Hobonichi cousin and using her stickers, and I thought it was really beautiful, and I watched some more of her TikToks, and then I realized that she had a YouTube channel, and so I jumped into watching some of her YouTube videos, and from there, you know, the recommendations that I got for other creators and things kind of sent me down a rabbit hole of pens and fountain pens and stickers and ephemera and journals and traveler's notebooks and Midori and, you know, Stalogy and all the different, you know, wonderful companies and products and things that as a kid who loved school and who, you know, really loved school supply shopping, the Scholastic Book Fair, getting not only my books, but, you know, the little erasers and rulers, and, you know, always really loving my Trapper Keepers and pencil boxes and things like that. It was a natural thing for me to kind of like fall into and to have kind of that joy of when I was a kid shopping for school supplies kind of get reignited. As an educator, I taught middle school English for many, many years and am now an administrator as an AP at a school. That love obviously continued in the form of like adult stationery and planners, but, you know, it was mostly a, you know, utilitarian kind of relationship of this planner really serves the purpose that I want it really well. But I had not really taken a dive into journaling or having, you know, notebook ecosystems or you know, all the things that I now have. But that was how I kind of fell into it. In watching Helen, I realized, like, and then all of the other different creators, that, you know, there was a lot of fun and creative outlet. As somebody who was a teacher, which is, in my opinion, a very creative job, in not only like you know, visually creative in the sense of like decorating your classroom, the way that you make your slides, your handouts, all the things that you present to children, but also in a creative outlet for, as an English teacher especially, like, what books are we reading? How are we exploring them? What different ways am I going to have my students explore it? You know, moving into administration, I get to spread that knowledge and that skill and that art to other adults, right? And I get to work with children in a new and interesting way. But some of that, like, everyday creativity was lost. And in watching people decorate their spreads, I realized, like, as somebody who is pretty creative and artistic in my own way, I was like, oh, this is gonna be not only really helpful to kind of up my planning game, but maybe there is a gap in my life where I can kind of express myself creatively once again. And so all of that was swirling in my head, as well as the election had just happened in the United States. And, you know, as somebody who is a teacher, an educator, as someone who is a cis gay man, as somebody who is, you know, from an immigrant family, you know, lots of different layers of like reasons why the policies and the you know, rhetoric coming out of the political sphere after the election was really, really frightening, and kind of like I felt could be very consuming, especially for someone who battles with you know, anxiety, as I've mentioned on this channel before in different videos. And so honestly, the first thing I thought of when I kind of fell into this, you know, planning, journaling community online was to think about how I can create a new routine for myself in using a journal every night as a way to, instead of doom scrolling on my phone, write down about how I'm feeling about things, and like I said, kind of get creative with it. And so that's what led me in you know, winter break of 2024 to purchase my first Hobonichi. And so I got a Hobonichi Original A6, and this has become my planner for every day. You know, I can link the most recent Techo Kaigi to kind of, if you want to go more in depth on how I use this, but I started writing every day in this. Originally, it was kind of loose, and then I eventually bought this cover, and I had a cover on it, but it's gotten so chunky that the cover on cover was kind of struggling to stay on. It has that elastic or that like zipper or Ziploc bag like press seal on the back that just kept popping, and so I removed it and kind of embraced the fact that this might get stained. This is the herringbone cover in A6. I found this, I think, at Nico Neko in the Lower East Side. I loved this cover, and I had seen other people on Reddit with it, and I knew that if I was going to get a cover, this would be the one that I wanted, and it was unavailable online. I mean, to be honest, because I bought this in December, and I'll talk a little bit more about this, about missing the kind of like release. You know, I bought this on Amazon, if I'm going to be honest. And so the planner itself. And so when I saw this cover in Nico Neko, literally there were no Hobonichi covers left. There was just this single one sitting there. I knew, well, this is a sign that I needed to get it. And so I've had this on my journal every day. I'm on my journal and I write in it every day. From there, in looking at the different ways that people used Hobonichi products. I had recently, in November of 2024, gotten married, and I talked a little bit about in my first Techo Kaigi that I realized that in having a planner for that wedding, I had really gotten my personal life a little more organized. You know, I've always been a person as a teacher who used a planner at work. To varying degrees of intensity, but I've always had one. And in preparing for the wedding, I was, you know, marking everything in this like monthly calendar, and I was realizing that not only were wedding tasks going in there, but just little things about like, oh, send a text to this person, or make sure you pay this person back. You're meeting this friend on this day. And then I was like, oh, you know, I always carry this in my mind, and especially moving from a teacher to an assistant principal, my brain, and in wedding planning, was getting so full. I knew I needed to write it down. I was like, why haven't I thought about writing things down in my personal life already? You know, I think I fell into the trap of, oh, I'll just use my phone, but I know that I'm a paper pencil person, hence always having a work planner that is, you know, analog and on paper. And so that led me to not only purchase the A6 original, but then also get a Hobonichi Weeks. And I bought the clear cover for it. I just got this gray. Again, I was completely new to this world. I knew that some of the covers had designs. I knew like the Paddington had been really popular, but I didn't know all about the different things. I just, again, went on Amazon, and as I was putting this Techo in my cart, I saw, oh, they have this Gray Weeks. Let me just try this out. And so, you know, I purchased this. And, you know, honestly just started testing pens and things out in the beginning of the year calendar. You know, I purchased Helen's kind of like calendar kits for the weeks from the Coffee Monster Co. And I just kind of like started writing all sorts of random things in here to kind of test the paper, which we'll talk a little bit about what that ended up being like for me. But and so I I had these two planners. I had these two notebooks. One as a journal, the A6, and my weeks as my personal life planner. And eventually, in carrying this around a few months ago, I also decided to, since I was using this as an everyday carry, get a different case for it. And so I bought this Hobonichi Taragen case in the, I think it's moss green. And I realized that since I'm carrying this around all the time, it would be really helpful to kind of have this not only be like a planner that has the paper inside of it, but it would be nice to have like a pencil case to carry around, and to have all my bits and ephemera and things of that nature. And so the Tragen was really great for that because it has a place to keep my pen. It has a place to like pop in cards from the doctors and things. I can tuck some notebooks and things in here. But I also have the zipper compartment that I found to be really helpful. So now I always toss this in my backpack or a tote bag if I'm going around, and I just always have a pen, highlighter, things that I need. And so this has really just become almost like a wallet. Like I don't keep my credit cards or anything in here. I mean, I probably could and just eliminate having to carry the wallet in my pocket, but I'm so used to it being there that I don't think I'm quite there yet. But yeah, that's how this kind of evolved. And then, again, if you've been on the channel, I realized that moving to an administrator from a teacher, there was just a lot more that I needed to capture in my everyday work planner. And that is when I decided to go all in on Hobonichi. And, I've seen people use the cousin, and I liked that it had the yearly calendar, it had the weekly calendar for appointments so I could schedule my meetings, my observations, when I was going to be doing what. But in my old planner, there was only one space for a to-do list, whereas in the Hobonichi Cousin, I could then set myself up to, in the daily pages, to kind of write to-do lists every day. So, this is the current cousin that I'm using. I can put a to-do list, take notes of any meetings and things that I'm having in here while using the weekly pages to kind of capture, any meetings or things that I'm having. And so I get to do both. I get to have my weekly calendar, my appointments, and also just have a daily to-do list where I can really put all the tasks that I need to accomplish. And I kind of Frankensteined this case together. I can also link the video where I kind of created this to hold it. And I chose the Avec because it is January to June and then July to December, and so I can have it follow the academic calendar here in America by using the latter half of the year for the rest of this year, and then I'll talk about more what I'm going to be purchasing, I think, moving forward for, as we talk about 2026. But if I buy another Avec system, I'll have the January to June of next year to use for the second half of the year, and the July to December of next year to use for the fall. So I can just kind of keep going on a cycle to kind of get around the fact that the Hobonichi has a regular year and an April start, but neither of those are helpful to the American school calendar. So that's kind of like how I became all in on Hobonichi. I started with a journal, I went into the weeks for my personal life, and then I decided to planner hop from the academic planner I had been using to the cousin. What's really interesting for me as I unbox this Hobonichi 2026, my thoughts around it, and in a minute I thought I would just have you join me. This is my stationery, like, traveler's notebook insert. It's where I write about all of my stationery journey as I've gotten really into this hobby. I kind of like, when I bought my first fountain pen, or when I, went to this event, or met this person, and it's all stationery related, I can kind of like journal about it in a more like, I guess, hyper-specific way. But I thought that I would write down my thoughts about Hobonichi's 2026 release in here, and so I might, it soon be gluing some things down and starting to write, and I'll kind of explain what I'm doing as I do it. But I think moving into this planner season for the first time, that's really interesting, is that because I missed the release last year, I didn't get, I didn't know anything about like the kind of hype that gets, pumped up around this time of year, that August is the big month. And so it's been really exciting to kind of experience, like, following Hobonichi on social media, them posting their previews every day, seeing the collabs that they're doing, the Tamagotchi and the other different cartoons or artists or things of that nature, seeing the new colors for the weeks and the more basic covers. All of that's been really, really exciting, and I wake up each day and I'm very, very excited to kind of see what has been posted. And every day it's like, oh, I thought I wanted this, but maybe I want that. And while that's really, really exciting, and like I love seeing all the different comments that people are putting on the posts and the discourse, some of the TikToks that are being pushed on my algorithm are just people like recapping what they announced every day and kind of talking about what they're excited about. And it is really, really fun, and it does give a sense of community. Like, not only did I start this to kind of create an outlet for myself, but I think another beautiful, like unexpected thing that came from this is the community. Like, I've met people in real life who, we formed like little planner meetups. I've gone to events and I keep seeing the same individuals, and we talk and catch up and kind of geek out about stationery and other stationery items, going to the stationery shops in New York for these events, or just to, peruse if I'm nearby. Like, I'm getting to know people who work there a little bit more. And, ultimately the decision to make this YouTube channel was also because I wanted to be able to kind of like add my voice to and my thoughts about the stationery and the different things that I'm doing to the community, and to start to like get comments from people regularly and just go back and forth. Like, all of that is just so wonderful, and like it makes me feel so excited. And so seeing people talk about all these things has been really fun. But at the same time, I think the danger that I see for myself is getting really swept up in it to the point where I feel like I'm going to miss out if I don't get certain things. Like, and there's just so many options and so many collaborations and so many colors and so many things that it's really hard in my head to not start thinking, well, I need to get that. And like, well, maybe I should get a second weeks because maybe I could use a weeks for this, or it would be really fun if I purchased this one and did that. And I can see myself starting to like, it's kind of like an excited spiral, but it's like also like it's rooted in this, I don't want to, like a FOMO, stationary FOMO almost, like my fear of missing out is getting activated in some ways. And so I really have to like sit down and be like, okay, yeah, that's really beautiful. Is it something that's going to bring me joy like for the whole year, or am I just kind of like getting wrapped up in it? And that's kind of also why I wanted to make this spread. I've seen people talk about what they want to purchase next year, and some people are just kind of chatting about it. Some people are doing like brainstorms or webs. I definitely thought like a nice gab session, but also kind of like writing my thoughts down would be really helpful to ultimately know like what is it that I want or need, and then which one would serve me the best, and kind of narrowing it down and making that decision this way is going to be really helpful. It is really, really cool to be a part of the like release, and I think I'm very lucky that I live in New York, because there are some things that I think are going to help kind of reduce this swept up feeling that I'll talk about in a second. But I definitely have to like, almost like it's like a kid in a candy store. I have to like pause and breathe, and I can't even buy any of this stuff yet. And thank God, because I feel like every day I'd be adding something to my cart just because of like the excitement. It's like I'm little Michael at the Scholastic Book Fair again, trying to like desperately decide which cute eraser and sharpener combo I'm going to get, and maybe I should get them all, but then I won't get a book, and then, you know, like freaking out internally about that. So yeah, I think that it is a really unique experience, but one where I kind of have to like put up some of those like mental pauses to really catch myself. I think it's also interesting because when I joined, like, you know, there was some controversy last year with Hobonichi. I know that the rollout online was kind of like a mess, and again, completely missed that, so literally had no stake in that game. And so it is kind of fascinating to hear people's reflections on that, and the different, like, you know, policies that were put in place, and the bots, and the all of that. It is really interesting to hear, but, you know, thankfully I didn't have to experience any of like the negative aspects of that. But I think the paper controversy was something that I definitely felt myself. I was very lucky that in my cousin, the Vex system that I've gotten, I have not really experienced any super issues, but also in that book, to be fair, I'm only using gel pens. My weeks has been pretty good as far as holding up to any bleeding or feathering. It does feather some, but the bleed through has been minimal. My Avec, though, I've had some pretty severe situations where things have bled through so terribly that I had to kind of put giant stickers or paper on the next page to kind of cover up the bleeding because it was so bad. And, you know, like, I know, for example, on this page, I kind of put this paper over because when I wrote the prompt, it bled through really, really terribly. And then on the next day, I had to black out to cover up kind of like the bleed through. And so, you know, it's been a trial and error on what works and what doesn't. Because I have no comparison to prior years, though, it hasn't really gotten me enraged. Like, it's a little annoying at times to like try a pen and realize, oh, that's not writing very well. But because I'm not like, this pen used to write perfectly last year, because I have no last year to compare it to, I think it's less upsetting, even if it is a little annoying. And so I'm very excited because I think that, you know, they've announced that they're working on the paper. Yoseka Stationery in Brooklyn has a Hon that you can go in the A6 size, I believe, and test your pen out. And I took the pen that bled most egregiously in my A6, and I wrote in it, you know, with my normal handwriting. I can put a photo here of that, the front and the back page, and no feathering, no bleed through, minimal ghosting, right? And then on that same page, you'll see other people wrote beautiful calligraphy with like their wettest, shimmeriest inks. And when I flip the page, again, no bleed through. And so I'm excited, you know, all this points in the direction that like whatever issue they had with the paper last year has been corrected. I know that paper is made from like natural fiber. It's always going to have like a variance, right? Nothing will be perfect. But even on Yoseka's YouTube channel, they've posted some videos of like in the weeks testing different inks and comparing it to the test they did last year, and it looks really promising. So hopefully, fingers crossed, that means that we are no longer having a big issue with the paper. I think something that might become a big controversy for this year is Hobonichi announcing that there is going to be an app for, you know, kind of taking notes on what happened during the day. And I think that there's a place where you can print photos. I know people have pointed out that that's the premium version of the app that you may have to pay. And like the premium and subscription aside, or subscription service aside, which you know, can be problematic in and of itself. But I think what's really interesting is like, where is that data being stored? Who has access to that data? If they're going to be collecting all of this information about the daily lives of people, is it, going to be tagged with a geolocation? Are your coming and goings being recorded if you enter things into the app? Who has access to that? That I think is, I'm sure that there are going to be like already maybe some answers if I dug a little bit more deeply on the website. But I'm sure a lot of people are going to be asking that question. And it just seems, I'm always a little hesitant to be like, let me just put all of my information or my thoughts and feelings into this thing where my data could be mined for, advertising purposes or things of that nature. And so, there's a hesitancy there, and I wonder how they're going to navigate the controversy of that. I also wonder if like AI at some point will be involved. It seems like every company that has a product is like somehow enveloping AI, and the problematic nature of AI for its stealing from artists, from its open access to information that necessarily doesn't give credit or monetary compensation to the people who've written or made that. I think the resources that it consumes, and so while I know that I think as of yet there's been no AI component of the app announced, I could see that becoming a thing that goes down the line. And so I wonder if this will be the thing people are talking about. If the paper seems to be working well, if that will be something that will become the new kind of focus of like criticism, or maybe not even criticism is the right word, but just like questioning and like really like picking apart as we move forward. So then it comes to like purchasing what I would like to buy for 2026. And so I forgot to mention that I included this image. This came from the little leaflet that came with last year's Hobonichis, which was the mystery of the Techo mask. And to kind of represent the intense feelings around all of this, like previews and what I'm buying and the paper and all of it, it felt kind of appropriate to have this like almost Wizard of Oz like head floating on the page. I'm excited. I mean, I know that I'm going to be purchasing Hobonichi products. I think, as somebody who's only been in them a year, I'm excited to be consistent and continue in something for the next year. I do really like how the paper feels. I do like how most of my pens have performed in it, and moving into next year, hopefully that'll be all of my pens. And so there are a couple of things that I think are really interesting that they've decided to do, and that is, one, there's no free shipping over for large orders anymore. And as somebody who was really hoping to be able to band together with some people in my area who might want some Hobonichis, or some friends who I've gotten into getting Hobonichis, we kind of like come together to get that order. That's kind of disheartening to know that we're going to have to pay this shipping no matter what. But on top of that, there is, to go back to the political sphere, all of these tariffs that are being kind of like put in place, and I know that the de minimis clause has been like revoked, and so a lot of smaller companies that I know are saying, oh, we're no longer shipping to America, like get your orders in. At this point I think it's too late, but and I'm worried about how that's going to affect purchasing things directly from Hobonichi in Japan. The wording about what could be charged as far as customs is like vague. And I see like, oh, it could be like 10% of your purchase, or like some other ridiculous amount. And that's why some people are a little like scared, or even just saying like, hey, we don't know anything right now. Like if you put an order in, like we'll let you know the specifics once we have like concrete details. And all of that is just like a little frightening, to not only pay for shipping, and these notebooks and journals are not cheap, and so it's like all of that cost starts to really add up, and so it's it is something that gives me a little bit of pause. And so I feel very, very lucky that because I am in New York, the Yoseka stationery will be having a preview. They've done this in the past, like a preview party this year. It is not a lottery or a ticketed system, like everybody can come. And so I am excited that I will not only get to go to their new event space, Yoseka Land, across the street from the store, and see all of the Hobonichi products and touch them and feel them and do some more testing, and really help solidify my choices. But for the first year, on September 1st, you're going to be able to go and purchase the products there in the store physically. And so I'm wondering if I just need to buy them physically there. And if they don't have everything, maybe that limiting factor will be helpful in me battling my FOMO, because I could just have to accept that whatever's there is what I'm choosing from. But I think with the fact that there is no free shipping on large orders, with the fact that the tariffs are making things a little confusing, or and maybe I'm just like, falling into like anxiety about what that will be like, but I don't want to get hit with some crazy customs fees randomly. It might be better to just buy it in person. And even saying that, the part of me that is a little has the FOMO gets activated, because you'll notice I have the Hobonichi free pen from last year, but if you listen carefully, I ordered all of my products from Amazon, and so the only reason I got this is because someone on Facebook Marketplace was selling it as part of like a pen set that they were getting rid of for a couple of dollars, and I was like, yeah, I want that pen. So I went and met this person up and bought it from them. They even threw in the one from the previous year as like part of it, even though I did not purchase anything in 2024. There is something that is like nice to like have this, Unijetstream, to have the official pen for the year. And I know that if I'm purchasing in person, I won't be getting the pen, right? And I won't be getting the gift of the little paperweight robot. And I tell myself, it's okay if you don't get those things, but then the completionist part of me is like, oh, but then I won't have like the next year's, and maybe I can get it on Facebook Marketplace from somebody again. And that's probably what I'll end up doing, just because I feel like the fear of missing out does not outweigh my fear of what this shipping and tariff situation is going to look like. But and also, like, I joined this community by watching so many videos of people getting their Hobonichi box and opening them and unboxing all of their things. And part of me is also like sad that I won't have that experience. But I think that at the end of the day, I have to like kind of, again, remind myself, like, Michael, these are journals and planners that, are to be used to like, serve the purpose that you have for them, and to bring me joy in the way that I write in them and use them. And like the box and the packaging and the free things aren't necessarily the main point, even though they are nice add-ons. It is part of the like, mechanism to try to get us to purchase certain things, to get the certain freebies. And while it is really nice to feel like, oh, I have the set of things that came in, which is obviously what they're preying on, when they create these kinds of campaigns, I have to just be happy, like, knowing that I have the notebooks and planners that I want to use, and I like them because of the way that they're structured, and I can be okay with letting go of those other things. And if I come across them, that's great. And if I don't, that's also okay. And I don't know why sometimes that is difficult for me to process and take in, but I will have to be okay with it. Last year, because I ordered through Amazon, I didn't get the little free notebooks that came with them, and I have yet to come across one. And ultimately, it would be an extra notebook that I already have notebooks that serve purposes for the things I need, and it would just have it to have it, and I guess that is not the point. And so I'm glad to just kind of move on. And so this brings me to the part of the video where I'm thinking about next year. What am I going to be getting next year? To kind of help me decorate this and my thoughts, I'm going to be using the sticker sheet that I got from Moonlit journal. I purchased her Keeping Memories sticker sheet. She recently announced that she opened up a sticker shop on Etsy, and I was very excited to be able to go support her. I'll make sure to tag her here as well. And so on here, she has kind of like a Weeks-esque sticker and the Hobonichi Avec-esque stickers right here, and so I'm definitely going to be using those to kind of put in here and talk about what I want. There is no basically A6 version in here, and so I'm using this PET tape notebook to kind of represent that. And so this kind of helps you look into what I will be buying next year. I definitely think that I'm going to continue using the Hobonichi Weeks as a personal planner. I've really loved using it. I've gotten down to a format that I think works really well for me, where I can put in my appointments, put in the major events for the week. I can put in to-dos by day, as well as a big running to-do list that is not day specific. I also have a little tracker for some of my habits in there, and it's been really nice working in it, and I think that I am going to continue doing that. And so I'm going to just represent that here. I'm going to take off this sticker, and I'm going to stick that over here. And so I'm definitely going to be doing that. Which weeks I want is a different story. I do think that I am, especially because I have the Tragen, I don't look at the cover of the Hobonichi very much. So I think a solid color makes a lot of sense. I really think that the mustardy yellow that they showed is really beautiful. I'll try and include a photo here, as well as the green I really liked, and I'll try and include a snapshot here as well. So one of those I think is definitely going to be coming home with me. I think that obviously I'm going to be purchasing the Avec system for next year, because I have July to December for the first half of this school year already set up, and when I purchase this Avec set of the cousin, I will then have January to June in there as well. And so the Avec, they come in just the colors that they come in. They haven't announced anything different so far, and I already have a cover that I really like, that I kind of masterminded together, and so I will keep using it in there because it is very lightweight, it is very thin, it is easy to carry around. I put a pen loop in it so that I can carry my pen that I use with my planner very easily, and so I will just continue on with that. Which does remind me of something I didn't mention, that this year Hobonichi also announced that if you are purchasing a cover, you can only purchase it with a book. Last year, you could purchase them separate from one another. I've heard that in the past this was the case, that you can buy a book separate, but to get a cover, you had to buy the book to go with it as well. And they reverted back to that policy, which I think is really fascinating, because if you have a planner that you like or a notebook that you like and you simply just wanted a new cover for it, then now it becomes a little bit more of a cost because you have to buy a planner to go with it. And so this leads me to my last and final decision, which is that I am going to be journaling in a Hobonichi daily. The question that now comes to me is, do I keep an A6 or do I move into a cousin for my daily journaling? The reason being that I'm really enjoying the A6. It does feel like a little too small for me. Early on, I was writing an answer to a prompt and journaling. And then I moved to a more like mixed media, try to add some more collaging, more washi, more ephemera, doing some drawing. And so I cut the prompt out. And so now I'm only writing about my thoughts about the day or how I was feeling. But I did like answering the prompts because I do think that having prompts has me reflect or bring new ideas out than just like, here's what happened today, or here's a major thing that happened and how I'm feeling. I'm also capturing my thoughts and feelings about these wonderful random things. I was using the prompts that Helen from the Coffee Monster Co. provides. I know that she doesn't know if she's going to continue making those, but I know that there are prompts you can find online or in books moving forward from there. And so I did like that. And so I wonder if having the A5 size, of having the cousin, would allow me to have more space to answer the prompt, to journal. I would have the monthly pages. I was this year trying to put a photo a month. I could continue to do that, or some other kind of tracking by the month. But then the weekly pages, that's the place where I wonder what I would do with them. And so is it worth getting a book if I don't have a concrete plan? I know that other people do weekly updates, or maybe that's a place where I could keep track of a gratitude for every day or something of that nature. And so I'm really thinking about that. And that's the thing that I'm not quite sure. And if I were to move out of the A6 and into a cousin, and not the AVEX system, just one big cousin, even though I might bloat out like my A6 currently is. Although I'm learning my lesson about too much ephemera in the same place, but for the first third of the year, it was all kind of in the same spot. If I were to move into a cousin, then it would be, do I get a cover with it, and which cover would that be? And so that's where it's getting more complicated. And I know we haven't gotten all of the collabs and everything out yet, so I'm definitely keeping myself open to the idea, but also reminding myself to not want to move into the cousin just because I would then get a cover to go along with it that I'm really excited about. I'd be more than happy to, if I continue in this size, pop this bad boy out, continue to use this cover. I really, really loved it, and I love having it. And that's the other thing that makes me want to stay in the A6 is the consistency, right? If I finish this year out, so far I've been really happy with myself, and my journaling practice of keeping it every day. It would look pleasing to me to have on the shelf all these A6s as I archive them in a row. But then part of me also is, that's the perfectionist part of me, which is kind of the topic of my last video. It doesn't have to look perfect. Like, I could have an A6 one year, a cousin the next. Who knows, maybe next year I'll give up Hobonichi and I'll get a Sterling ink planner or a Wonderland or who knows what, and they'll just all look different, and I need to be okay with that, because at some point down the line I'm not going to have this for the rest of my life, right? And so if I do want to keep journaling up, it's going to change, and so why not embrace that change now and not block myself in just because I want it to look the same way on the shelf. So I have to do some more inner thinking about if I'm going to be needing more space or not, and I think that'll be the ultimate deciding factor. And so, yeah, that is what I'm thinking. I'm going to pause for a moment and just write those thoughts down, and then come back so that you can kind of see what this looks like filled out. All right, so here is the spread all kind of filled out. Sorry, I'm just going in and correcting a little smudging issue I had. If you are a fountain pen user, you know the life. I kind of just put my thoughts down for my weeks, my avec, and my complicated thoughts about what my daily journal is going to look like. I'm realizing this little spot feels a little blank, so I might throw a sticker or something in there, just for artistic balance purposes. But yeah, I'm really excited to have kind of captured my journey of, unboxing Hobonichi 2026, or us getting to unbox it together. Maybe because I won't get an actual box, this is the best unboxing I'm gonna get. So, thank you so much for joining me. I would love to hear in the comments like what you're thinking about your own personal journey with the Hobonichi books. Did you use the old notebooks where the old paper was used? What was your experience with the paper this year? Are you excited? Does this release bring you like the amount of joy and community that it brings me, but does it also bring you a little bit of like anxiety or FOMO feelings like it's bringing me as well? How do you feel about this app? Do you think it's going to be controversial? Or be the talking centerpiece of Hobonichi, now that hopefully the paper is not going to be that? What are you thinking about purchasing? What collaborations are you excited about? Are you going to be purchasing anything because of the tariffs, because of the shipping, or are you not? And what made you make that decision? If you are getting a cousin and a cover, which ones do you love? Because if I end up going that route, I would love to know what other people are excited about, and if it's the same things that excite me. I really appreciate spending this time together. As I mentioned earlier in the video, like the community that comes from being a stationery lover and, journaling and junk journaling and, to some extent scrapbooking and writing and fountain pens and ink and all of these things, it has been so wonderful. And so part of that is the people like yourself and others who join me to hear my thoughts, and to share yours with me. So again, thank you for being here, and I look forward to hearing what you think. Until next time, I hope that you have a great rest of your day. If that is, many hours because you're watching this in the morning, or even if it's the next 20 minutes before you go to bed. Until we meet again, I hope that you continue to explore the possibilities of a blank piece of paper. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.